You're listening to In Sickness, a podcast about caregiving with Allison Breininger and Justin Bima. Good morning, Allison.
Hi, Justin. It's been a while.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk today about why we've taken a little bit of a hiatus. But the last time we talked, which was quite a while ago, you told us that you had just started, or not just started, you were kind of in the midst of your TMS. And we had a whole episode about that. And so now it's been a number of weeks. Can you kind of fill us in? Like, how's it been going? Are you done? What's happening?
Yeah, so it's been quite a while. I think I started in early March, and now we are, when is it now? We're into May.
Yeah, it's May.
And so, I was originally supposed to be done at the end of April, and because it was towards the end of the process, it was really starting to help. I was starting to feel relief from the depression. I'm not sure as much on the anxiety front how that's shaking out.
Okay.
But definitely I feel something is different. And so they recommended another 15 sessions kind of tacked on to kind of really try to push through and get some more benefit. So I'm still in the midst of the TMS. I've got 7 more sessions to go. I just finished my last 5-day week. So
you've gone every pretty much 5 days a week since March.
Just about, yeah.
Oof.
So that's been a lot to just have on the schedule.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm kind of tired from
I'm sure
all of that.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to being done. I've got 2 weeks with 3 sessions and then 1 more session, so 7 more to go. So winding down. But I definitely can feel something. Definitely something feels different. I feel like things feel lighter. There's less of like every day feels like I'm just like wading through like sand or mud or, just having to push through. The unfortunate thing is that like at the same time as this is happening, like I'm in a period with work where it's been just like orders of magnitude more stressful and overwhelming than like I've experienced in my like entire career. It's just this very, very rough patch with that. And so it's like, I really wish that these weren't happening concurrently so that I could really like feel the benefit. So it's like, I feel there's so much like burnout from work happening at the same time as like, this TMS is helping with like the depression. And so it's like feeling better on some level, but also still just extremely exhausted from just the work side of things. So that's been frustrating, but I'm still immensely glad that I underwent this treatment. And I like, if I hadn't been going through the treatment these last months, like I would be in a much worse place right now. I know that.
How long do they expect? First of all, like, I'm so excited for you because I know that, going into it, you had no idea. I mean, nobody really knows, right? Like, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? So amazing that it is working for you. Do they have a sense of like, are the benefits permanent? Do they wear off after a while? Like, do they know?
Yeah. It's not like a permanent thing. It's not a cure. It is like a treatment for like a depressive episode that you're currently in kind of thing. And so it sounds like a lot of people for whom it helps like at least a year out, they're still doing well.
Oh, great.
So like the benefits should last for a while, I think. But that's not something that there's like a clear kind of like answer for necessarily. But Okay.
I was just hoping that it wasn't like 8 weeks so that like by the time the work project ended.
It's not supposed to be something where like as soon as I stop, then it's like, the benefit goes away. So that's good. Yeah.
Well, I hope that the work project ends and then you can feel the full impact of this. Oh, wow. Well, I'm so glad you did it.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm very grateful that it was something I was able to do. Yeah, for sure.
And insurance ended up covering all of it.
Pretty much, yeah. Wow. Which is, again, that's something feel very privileged to like have insurance be able, because It's not an inexpensive thing.
I'm sure it's not.
And also really grateful that like I've been able to have the flexibility with work to like make it happen, which, you know, I feel very fortunate in that regard as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I know that after our last episode, a lot of people were really grateful that you spoke about it and that you put it out there, because I think it's something that people sort of have heard about, or, you know, and so thanks for kind of walking us through like what that's looked like for you and sharing with us what that's been like.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about you? How have you been doing since we last talked, and what's been going on?
Oh man, friend, it has been a journey, shall we say. And I hate that word. I hate that word. But yeah, I mean, the reason that we haven't spoken in so long is because I took a hiatus. So I think that I have mentioned here before that, you know, last July, I quit my big job to launch the Negative Space, which was like my dream and continues to be my dream. And something that I think happened because of that is that my brain and my body had more time and more space to sort of, I think, process all of the hard things that I've gone through in 11 years. And so, because I think when I was working full time and doing Negative Space and caregiving and parenting, I just shoved it all down. Right. Because there was no time to process anything. So I think now that I have more time and you know, more space in my life, all these feelings are emerging.
Right.
And one way that they're emerging is in panic. So I have, you know, we've talked about this. Like I've always had some anxiety.
Yeah.
But not really panic. And so since the job ended, I've had sort of bouts of panic attacks.
Yeah.
And so times where like for sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks, I wake up every morning just panicking. And it's not my mind necessarily. It's not like I'm saying this thing. It's physiological, right? It's my body is saying, you know, like something dangerous is happening.
Yeah.
And so that's happened a number of times that I've had these little kind of a week or maybe a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks of kind of a rough patch since last summer.
Yeah.
And I've tried different things and I've, you know, I'm in therapy and I switched meds at one point and whatnot. But I think the other thing that's happening is that I'm so physically sort of run down from all that has happened in my life. And so what has happened is that when I get a headache like a regular person does, or stomach ache, you know, it knocks me out.
Right.
And so it was kind of this combination of, at one point in March, I woke up one morning with a stomach ache. It only lasted a half an hour, went away, but then it like knocked me out for like 2 days. I was just tired.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, because I'm tired and because I've been feeling sort of under the weather more often,
right?
Because I'm run down, then I look at my calendar and then I start to panic and think, if I'm sick today, what are the odds that I'm going to feel well enough when I have to lead that webinar, when I have to coach that person, when I have to, you know, because a lot of the things I'm doing with Negative Space are very like me focused, right? Like me in a camera live doing a thing, which I love doing. When I feel well, I love doing it.
Yeah.
But when you don't feel well, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so, so what was starting to happen is that then I would kind of start to panic that like, because I was feeling well less often, that like I was going to be sick on the day that a thing was going to happen. And so then this panic was starting. And so in March, it just was really intense. And I decided to switch some meds again. And something happened where like they were trying to do a slow taper of the meds, of the old meds, because last time we did a fast taper and that didn't go well. So we were trying to do a slow taper, but essentially what happened is that I got like overloaded with meds because I was essentially on like an old med and 2 new meds basically at the same time.
Right.
So there came to be a night where I was like, I think, Sean, if you told me to wiggle my toes right now, like, I don't think I could do it. And then I was like, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is wrong? Right. And I called my mom and my mom came over. And then I realized I was like, oh, I think I feel drugged. Like, because at first I was like, some medical emergency is happening.
Right.
But then I realized, I think that this is the feeling of being drugged. Mm-hmm. And I think that I have too many drugs in my system right now.
Yeah.
And so had a day where then I went to urgent care because I was like, this is not okay to feel like this. And then that's just the worst because then you're sitting there and then COVID and all the stuff. And so they checked I had an amazing doctor who had breast cancer herself. Mm-hmm. And so she understood sort of this. I said, look, I'm a caregiver, and Sean was with me. And I said, here's what my life is. And she said, I'm so glad you told me that because otherwise you look like a perfectly healthy 42-year-old woman. Because all my labs looked perfect.
Right.
Everything looked perfect. And if I hadn't told her about this big stress that I have in my life, she would have been like, you're fine.
Right.
Go home. But she was like, you have to. And so caregivers, I want you to hear that, right? That like, because I told her that and because she had the background of knowing kind of what that means, she was able to be like, okay, this is different.
Yeah.
Like your labs say one thing, but that does not necessarily mean that all is well in your body. And she was lovely and was like, what do you want me to check? And so I just kind of was like, check for mono and check my vitamin D, check all the things. And then I said, I really want you to check an EKG because I feel like my heart feels weird.
Yeah.
So she did an EKG and it came back abnormal.
Right.
And she said, I think probably what's happening is that you have too many drugs in your system at this moment. And that is causing this abnormality.
Right.
And she was like, ignore this part on the screen that says these really scary words. Okay, sure. Oh. And she said, what we're going to do is we're just going to you're going to stop this med and we're going to change the med, We're just going to let the meds come out of your system. And then we're going to recheck in a couple of weeks. And if it's still like this, then we'll proceed with other tests. And if it's not, then great. It was just the meds. So I had this 2-week, I'm going to skip to the end here and say my heart is okay.
Okay.
But I had this.
Well, that's good.
Yes. These 2 weeks of being like, what if something is wrong with my heart? How is that going to work?
Right.
In this situation, right? So that's where your brain as a caregiver has to go. It's not just like, oh shoot. It's like, well, how? So now I'm going to be at the doctor all the time too, and how am I going to take care of him and all the things. And so that was really scary.
Yeah.
And having these couple of days in which I was just totally underwater because of this med mishap.
Right.
That they were trying to do the right thing and it just didn't work for me. And so feeling so tired and so underwater and just like, am I ever going to not be tired again?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the kind of the place I got to was like, I feel like this is my new normal. And as I age and things get harder, I'm only going to get more tired. And it felt terrible.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, in that same week, I think 2 days before then, Sean was going to have an endoscopy. And the morning as I was getting ready for the endoscopy, I had a massive panic attack getting ready. And I called my mom and I was like, I was hyperventilating and I was like, you need to come over. And the two of them were just like, I mean, I'm so fortunate, right? My mom's 5 minutes away and Sean's here and he's amazing. And the two of them were just trying to calm me because this is not me, right? Typically I feel like my body has been able to be like, oh, Sean's in the hospital, go be in the hospital. You get to go home for a minute and take a shower. In the shower, you can cry for a few minutes. And then it needs to end and then you go back, right? I feel like that's sort of how I've handled things in the past. Yeah. And so it was strange to preemptively panic. But I think something that I'm thinking so much about these days is, the trauma of me having to go back to those buildings over and over and over again.
Right.
And the same rooms and the same doctors and just be like, oh, I'm going to go sit in this really hard space and watch them slice my husband open again.
Yeah.
Over and over. And maybe get bad news in the same building I've gotten bad news in over and over and over again.
Right.
And so it's I knew that's what the day was going to be. And even though I was like, okay, I can do this. I've done this before. My body was like, nope. Nope, Reininger, you cannot.
Right.
Cannot. And so like, I think a low moment was like, they were, both trying to sort of calm me. And one of them was like, you are safe. And I said to them, I don't feel safe.
Right.
And it was not like in my house, I don't feel safe, or with them, I don't feel safe. It was like my body was like, nope, danger. Yeah. And so it was like this, like basically 11 years of cumulative stuff, coming out.
Yeah.
And so, and in that weekend, especially when I knew that this heart thing was like on the table and all that stuff, and I was so tired, I made the decision to like take a month off.
Right.
It is an Enneagram 3. That is a big deal. Because Enneagram 3s are all about like our worth is in productivity. And so it's a big deal to do that. And I recognize that I have like heaps of privilege, that I am my own boss. Right. And so I didn't have to take like FMLA and, worry about all that stuff. I could just say to the people and like to you, I'm taking a month off podcasts.
Right.
To the coaching people, to the webinar people. Right. And fortunately also because everyone's caregivers or works with caregivers, they get it.
Yeah.
So made that decision to take the month of April off.
Yeah.
So I have just been talking nonstop for a while. Anything you want? I've got more. Don't worry. But anyway, I'll pause for a minute.
Yeah.
See if there's anything.
One, like that's just an enormous amount of stuff that you've gone through in these last months. And I don't know, when you were talking about just feeling so tired and am I ever going to not feel so tired? Like right now with my burnout with work, like that's what I feel.
Yeah.
And like, I get that feeling. And I think that it's with caregiving as well. Like it's been there at times, like where it just feels like there's no end to it. It's every day you're just doing the same things over and over again. And is it ever going to end? Like you just get so exhausted from it. And I'm really glad that you were able to like offload a bunch of stuff for a time and give yourself some space. And I really hope that was beneficial for you. I can, just imagine, like I've dealt with panic attacks in the past as well. And they're terrifying. And to be at that point where like you can't really function is rough and scary and overwhelming. And like, that's a hard place to be. And so like, I get you're like needing to take that time, and I'm just glad that you were able to do it. And I really hope that it was helpful for you.
Yeah.
I think it's so hard to stop and offload things. Like, I think like as caregivers, we're often, and like, we just have to keep going. Like you feel like you can't ever stop.
Right.
Like there's just, the work is always there. The stuff is always there, and you just have to keep going. And I like that. I'm sure kept going during this month. Like that didn't let up. But like that you were able to offload other stuff and give yourself more space. That's a great thing. And that's a hard thing to do too, just to like acknowledge that you need a break, that you can't keep doing everything.
Right.
And then I'm hopefully like you went through that, and it's an opportunity again to see that, yes, you can do that and not everything falls apart.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's things didn't all fall apart.
It's true. Right. And even the day that I just spoke of, at first I was going to have my mom go to the appointment with Sean.
Yeah.
But then I realized like, I really think I need my mom here with me. And so I said, do you think we could call your brother and just see? And if he can't come, then let's send my mom. And Sean's brother just like, yep, absolutely. Here I go. And so, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is like, okay, can I preemptively do that next time? Are there times in the future that I can say, you know what, let's see if Adam can go along. Right. So it's not only just if I'm having like the lowest of a low, but like other times can that happen? Sure. Can we spread out the love a little bit? But I think when you said like, the caregiving doesn't stop. I mean, that was an interesting thing for me, that I like literally erased every work thing from my calendar. And still, between his appointments, my appointments, and then I had more appointments. Yeah. I felt like it was still like a full-time job.
Right.
And it made me realize, oh my gosh, like I usually do that plus this, plus I used to do all that, plus this, plus a 40-hour week job. Like, what? You know? And so it just made me realize how many layers of jobs, you know, that I have that I was not working. And yet it still felt like, oh, there's some stuff every day. You know, it felt really good to like I had to force myself to like almost not even think about anything.
Right.
You know, like not think about work stuff, not think about. And the thing is, I love this work. I love it. Right. And so it's not any of that. And it's not that this is a bad thing. It's just that it's a thing that takes time and energy. And I didn't have that time and energy. You know, one thing that I ended up, so what basically I just like dove into this because I'm a problem solver. But I dove into like, what are all the things I can do? Like if I have this month, what are all the ways that I can start to heal? You know, because I realized that too. Like like my body's telling me something. I got to listen. Yeah. And so I what can I do to start to work on all this trauma? And so I have this amazing friend who I just call her like a yoga guru. I don't know what she would call herself, that I started to work with. And it's so much more than just like the physical yoga stuff. She's just like very, very wise. And she was a person who said to me, you're not going to be tired forever. And I almost like wept because I was like, what? Because everybody else had just said, well, of course you're tired. Look at your life. Or like, well, you are getting a little older, so maybe that's why you're tired. And I'm like, well, no, that's not helpful.
No, it's not.
Like, this is just so 42-year-olds just feel like this all the time. Really? Or caregivers feel like this all the time? Or what? Really? And so for her to say, oh, no, you're not going to be tired forever. I was like, what? Really? And she said, oh, yeah. No, like we're going to work on this, and we're going to get your body back to a place where it's going to feel better. And I was just like, oh, wow. Like that felt amazing.
Yeah.
To have somebody say that. The other thing she said to me that was like mind blowing is I think I kept picturing these like 11 years of trauma.
Right.
And I was picturing like, okay, I'm in therapy and like we work through stuff. I was picturing like this list, and that like we needed to like go through the 11 years.
Right.
But it's like, it's sort of like brushing your teeth while eating Oreos. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's something I've never thought of before, but
I saw it once. It was like cleaning your house while you have children is like brushing your teeth while eating Oreos. But I feel like trying to heal from trauma while you are continuing to go through trauma feels like brushing your teeth while eating Oreos, right? So I was like, how am I ever going to make it through this list of 11 years of stuff if it keeps happening?
Right.
And it just felt too big. And so she said to me, you know, it's not like you need to go through everything and like, oh, let's talk about that day and let's talk about that day. She said, we're going to heal you like at a cellular level. We're going to start to work on stuff. That's going to help heal you. And the memories that really need to be worked on, they're going to make themselves known.
Right.
So that you can work through those.
Right.
But not every single thing needs to be worked on in order for you to heal. And I was like, what? Really? I mean, that just was like this huge, because I'm such a concrete sequential brain person. I was like, I just kept picturing this stack.
This big list. And that's just
big list
overwhelming. And and the list keeps growing.
Yes.
And it's, I understand that.
So for her to be like, no, friend, that's not how this has to work. I was like, oh, that was game changer.
Yeah. What a gift to hear that.
Yes. And I didn't realize I needed to hear it so much until she said it. And I was like, really? Okay. The other thing I didn't realize I needed to hear until a friend said it to me the other day. She said, I'm really proud of how hard you're working on all this. Like you're working really hard. And I just was like, oh, I didn't realize I needed somebody to say that. But I did. Because it's true. I mean, like, so at this point now, so I'm hanging out with this yoga friend once a week and she's giving me, so I'm doing actual yoga and actual stretches and whatnot. A lot of things like what are some like thoughts or like mantras or whatever that I can sort of remind myself of. I'm seeing the therapist every week. I started doing acupuncture because I just was sort of like, I will do whatever it takes. Yeah. Just tell me. It's kind of my own like little eat, pray, love of self-healing. And so I'm doing acupuncture every week. But I mean, I'm doing all of these things. And I have different things that I'm doing each day and different like breathing exercises and whatnot. And so essentially that the healing itself is now another part-time job, right? Like a thing
that's what I was going to say. You're listing all these things that you're doing, and how do you find that balance between like, those are very important things for you to be working through and healing and recovering and all of that. But how does that not become just more stuff on the list?
Totally. Yes. And I've had to balance, because like at this point, like I have like 2 to 3 appointments a week.
Right.
That are about me. Right. So I'm trying to see them as I look at my calendar as like balancing out, like those are bucket filling. Do you know what I mean? And again, I don't want to see it because I don't feel like my work calendar things are bucket draining necessarily. Right. But I feel like I'm trying to see them because the calendar itself kind of stresses me out sometimes because I'm like, oh, all the things I have to do, and am I going to have enough energy for them? So I'm trying to see each of those. Like I color code my calendar. And so those are all green. And I try to see the green things as like, those are like enhancing things.
Yeah.
Those are things that are going to like boost me and power me to get through the week. So that has helped, because it's true that there for a while I was like, how am I going to go back to work now having more things on the calendar?
Right.
But so some things like some simple like breathing exercises, or some things that like, it's also helpful to just have a bucket, like a toolkit.
For sure.
Of stuff.
Yeah.
That now it's like, okay, when this happens, you know, I've got a toolkit. So here's the coolest thing that has happened.
Okay.
That I want to like, I always say this, I want to trademark stuff. And you're always the nice one that's like, no, it should be free. But I just think it's so, it's been a game changer for me. So have you seen the movie Inside Out?
I have not.
That is what you have to do today.
Okay. This is where there's people in the brain that are talking. Okay.
Oh, friend, you have to go see it today. Okay. So good. So yes, essentially in the movie Inside Out, it's a teenage girl, and you can see the little panel in her brain. So there's joy, and there's anger, and there's sadness, and there's jealousy and whatnot. And they're like little creatures in there. And then joy is always sort of trying to take over and never let sadness do anything.
Right.
And sadness is always like, what about me? And then joy's like, no, we're going to make her life happy. Brilliant. It's brilliant. Right. So one day in therapy, my therapist was like, we're going to do this thing called parts work. And we're going to talk to your panic. So I immediately pictured Inside Out and like the little panic in my head.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, so you're just going to go in and you're going to talk to panic, and you're going to say, hey, panic, what is it that you need? What do you need from me, panic? And clear as day, I could see like a boardroom table, like a board, you know what I mean? Like a boardroom, and all my little people were around the table. And panic was like, I want a seat at the table. I want a name tag. I want a nameplate. I want a chair. Like, you have never let me sit at this table. And I want to be here. And I was like, okay, all right. You want a name tag? And so we had this, like, got to have this like whole conversation. And so what I realized was that, you know, the panic attacks were happening super early in the morning, like 5 a.m. And I was picturing that like the whole board would show up at 8 or whatever, 7. And panic was like, the only time that the board table is empty is at 5 a.m. And so I'm going to show up at the office at 5 a.m. and I'm going to wreak all kinds of havoc. And I'm going to run around and cause panic at 5 a.m. because that's the only opportunity I have.
Right.
And I was like, oh. And so now, like, I'm having conversations with panic and being like, you know what? You're right. I have never let you be at the table.
Right.
I've never let you have a voice. You've been trying to protect me all these years. And I've like been kicking you out of the room. And so now, panic, you get to be at the table with everybody else. And so, like the other day, so Sean had a repeat endoscopy.
Okay.
And so I was like worried because the last time he had one didn't go well for me. And so I was like, okay, panic, you and calm get to hang out together. And so like I'm going to need you, panic. Because then I think that's the other thing I came to is like, I was only letting like the good qualities show up. Right? Happy and calm and productive and whatever. And all these other ones, sadness and anger and resentment and bitterness and panic and anxiety, were like, I was like trying to shove them out of the room.
Right.
But they play a part.
Mm-hmm.
They have a role. And so thinking about, like, I tried to like partner them up to be like, panic. Yeah, there's moments today when I will need to panic because this is a dangerous day.
Mm-hmm.
And Calm's going to be right there with you to help you and to balance together.
Right.
You know, so that you don't have to take over, but that together you're going to get that to navigate this day.
Right.
And so being able to like sort of have these moments of like, okay, which part of me is not being heard? Which part of me is trying to make itself known right now? Which part of me is being shoved down?
Mm-hmm.
Or should I give the microphone to right now? Like something that happened the other day and I was like, you know what? Resentment. I bet you've got something you'd like to say right now. Would you like to speak?
Right.
And so like it gave the mic to resentment and let resentment like say, no, so this is all happening like in my brain.
Yeah.
Right. So then resentment got to talk. And then it was so funny because then like reason was like, can I say something? And I was like, for a minute, I'll let you talk for a minute, reason. But then we're going to give it back to like bitterness, you know, and it's just has been, and not everybody's heads work this way.
Yeah.
But this has been like so helpful for me. Right.
Yeah. Cause so often there's so many different, whether they're emotions or things like panic or whatever, like we just suppress, or just like feel like there is no, they aren't helpful or productive or whatever emotions to feel.
Yep.
But there's a reason that they're coming up, and there is something that they or our body is trying to tell us through that. And I just think that's what you've described is such a powerful analogy of kind of how to give space to all the different parts of what we're feeling and all of our different ways we're processing these experiences. Yeah. Because like if you suppress panic for years and years and years, like it doesn't go away. It's just building up and building up and building up. And like, it's gonna get its seat at the table. Yeah. And it's gonna have a lot to say for a while.
It's true. Yeah. Like I picture panic as like a teenage boy. Okay. Like a sort of like angry, erratic teenage boy that's like jumping on the boardroom table and just like, at 5 a.m. Like, you know, but like slowly he started to be like, okay, oh, you're going to listen to me? Okay. Okay, cool. You know? Yeah. It's interesting because I like, does this, you know, like I said, everybody's minds and brains are different. Does this resonate with you? Does this feel like, or are you like, yeah, no, that would never, I don't know. Like it works for me, but I'm just wondering like for other people.
No, it resonates on some levels. Like the notion of like when you're feeling something, whether that's panic, whether that's anxiety, whether that's resentment or grief or anger or joy or whatever. Yeah. Like giving that a moment to like, okay, whether that's why am I feeling this way, whether that's what is my body trying to tell me through this, what is this, just having that ability to be present with what you're experiencing. Because it's so often I find for me, and I think for others, like we're kind of end up on autopilot, and we're just going through every day is just kind of like a repeat of the day before. And we have the same kind of things we're doing every day. Every day is hard. Every day we're tired. And to take the time to like listen to what our bodies are saying, to what our minds are, to what our emotions are trying to tell us. And whether that's, you know, learning that we need to find time to slow down and rest, whether that's like there are things that we are scared of that we're not like, that we're trying to ignore, that we need to like think through, or like allow ourselves to acknowledge that, yeah, there's something going on that's overwhelming and scary and terrifying. And there's certainly plenty of those kinds of things in caregiving. So yeah, I think it's a powerful analogy. One thing that's kind of, I mean, it sounds like you've been able to really spend a lot of time like prioritizing yourself and like treating yourself as not like the patient necessarily, but like making your health and your wellness like a focal point.
Yeah.
And I know that for myself, and I think that for a lot of other caregivers, like it's always the health and well-being of the person we're caring for.
Totally.
It's so hard to like put us in a position where we're focusing for a time, or I mean, whatever, on our health, on our wellness. And I know that like for me, that like dedicating so much time to this TMS treatment, like that was a challenge with that, is like, I'm the one going through this like long medical procedure or treatments, and like it's okay to make myself the center kind of our schedule for these months with my health. So like, what was that like for you to need to, or be able to kind of have that shift?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I realize that not everyone can do this, right? Like,
that's true too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a good thing is that for the most part, Sean was pretty stable during this time. And so he was really able to be like supportive of me and all of those things. It was definitely like, especially when it was time for me to go to urgent care, and he was taking me to urgent care. It was kind of funny because when we checked in, the check-in person kept looking at him.
Right.
And being like, wait, which of, because it's like, if you like look at the two of us, it's like he probably looks a little more like he needs urgent care than I do. And so she kept looking at and like, wait, which of you is checking in? So it was an interesting thing for me to be like, I am the patient, but I think that I had gotten to such a desperate spot that I just had to, like, I just couldn't not, I think that if he had something in the middle, well, I don't know. I mean, he had that endoscopy and I was like, here I go, I'm going to rally. And then my body was like, nope, can't, nope. So I think that there are times when it felt kind of lovely to be like, my needs actually are higher. No, I don't know. I don't want to make it a hierarchy, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm the one that gets to say like, I'm going to go take a nap, and can you pick up I need that. It felt kind of nice. Yeah. I have to say, and I realized that we were in a good spot, that we were able to do that. And then he absolutely rallied and was like an amazing caregiver to me. But yeah, it felt strange. It felt kind of nice. It was interesting to be able to switch in that way. Yeah. And I think the big thing now is like, April is over. Right. So I had sort of said to everyone, like, I'm going to take off April and then we'll see. And again, like April 21st, I remember I started to like panic a little bit, like, oh man, it's almost the end of April. What am I going to do? And then I went to the boardroom in my head and I was like, oh, who's talking? It was, realized that it was like commitment, like the commitment part of my brain was like, there are people counting on you and they're waiting for you and you need to get back there. And then I had this little board meeting when I said, look, hey, commitment, it's only April 21st. Yeah. We don't need to figure that out yet. And we even pictured like an agenda. Right. And I was like, we can cross that off today's agenda because it's only April 21st. We don't have to think about that yet. And so that was really helpful, but I a couple times had to like force myself when I would start to feel better to not be like, okay, I'm going to go back. Started, especially because I love this work, So it is May and I'm back. And what I've tried to do is figure out to keep the things on the calendar. Like I'm still doing therapy, the acupuncture, the yoga person. Yeah. Keep those things on. I've slowly started to bring other things back. And I'm just really trying to, because I'm so black and white in my brain that like, like on April 28th, I started to do some work. I was like, no, I should take a nap because it's April. And I was like, actually, that's not how it has to work. And so to try to just like build in time still and still listen. Because I think part of it is the panic healing, but part of it is like the physical healing that I feel like I just need a lot of rest and I don't have the stamina that I did before in my life. And so carving out time for naps and rest and trying to like build my schedule and my day around making sure that there's time for that. Yeah. And being careful about what I say yes to. And having all these strategies built into the day. And then I think also there's a super exciting thing that I'm working on behind the scenes that is going to help, hopefully, for negative space be something I can work on when I feel good.
Right.
And is not as much connected to like Allison has to show up at noon at Tuesday at this time. That I can work on it when it works for me. And the nice thing is that then people will be able to access it when it works for them.
Right.
So anyway, that's like a brainstorm thing that came out of this that I'm excited about. But we'll tell you more about that another day.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, so I think that, a lot has happened.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge that I realize that I come from a huge place of privilege and that a lot of caregivers are going to listen to this and be like, I can't take a month off. I can't afford acupuncture. I can't yada, yada, yada. So I do think I will say that at Negative Space on my posts, I'm going to be talking a lot about what has happened and things I'm doing, and really especially highlighting the things that were like free, fast, easy. You know what I mean? Like the other day I did a thing like I'm doing this yoga thing every day. It's free. It's on YouTube. It's 20 minutes. Like you don't have to be good at anything. You end up like with a pillow and a blanket. You know what I mean? And so it's like to recognize that, yes, I was able to like dive headfirst into this like radical support of myself. And from that, I'm going to be pulling things that I feel like anybody is able to do so that it doesn't feel like you have to either take a month off and do all this stuff or nothing. Right.
Right. That's a place that I know I've got stuck in before, where it feels like there's the only way that you're going to recover or get some relief is to just stop everything and rest. Right. And that feels often like an inaccessible, impossible thing. And so it's like, well, there's no other option. I just have to keep plodding ahead. Yeah. And that's a rough place to be. So like, I'm excited to see what you have to share. That's like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And there's small things we can do to fit into, to prioritize ourselves
for sure
every day.
Yeah. And I think, so many people have been like, you have to fill up your own cup or blah, blah, blah before you can pour from it or whatever. And I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously there's some truth to it. Right. And so I think also it's like, what are the things that little things that we can be doing along the way so that we don't reach that point where our bodies are like, nope, done. You have gone too far.
Yeah.
Which isn't always an option, but yeah. So thank you I think I haven't really told that whole story in one sitting yet. So thank you for letting this be a space where I could share all of that, and for your understanding and for listeners' understanding as we took a month off of recording here as well. And so thank you for that, and for, just getting it and being a safe space for me to be able to step away and then come back now that I'm ready and all that stuff. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that. And I'm sorry that it got to a point where you had to, take sort of drastic steps like that, but also like, I'm glad that you were able to do it, and that it sounds like it's really been good for you in a lot of ways. And so I'm really glad that you were able to have that.
Thank you.
For you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Me too. Now I just got to be careful now that it's May to tiptoe back and not to like nosedive back. Oh, all right. Well, I feel like after that therapy session we just had, now I need to go take a nap.
All right. Well, you go do that.
Okay. All right. Always good to talk to you. I hope your last couple sessions of TMS go well.
Thank you.
And that the work thing, just get on through it, and then
it will end. Yeah.
It will end. Yes. Yep. Yeah. So. All right, friend. Good to talk to you.
All right. Great to talk to you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to insicknesspodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening, and take care.